Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies and show you how they were made. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at Misery, released in 1990. Misery was directed by the late, great Rob Reiner and based on the Stephen King novel of the same name. It follows Paul Sheldon, a paperback writer who finds himself kidnapped by an obsessive fan. That fan is Annie Wilkes, one of cinema's greatest villains. She's uniquely terrifying and played to cockadoodie perfection by Kathy Bates. In fact, Bates won the Oscar for Best Actress for the role, beating out the likes of Angelica Houston and Meryl Streep. That must have been crazy for Bates, since this was her first time leading a film. She had been in a few small on-screen roles, but most of her acting had been on the stage. Her win makes Misery the only King adaptation to have won an Oscar, and it's well deserved. Annie is a book-burning, hammer-toting force of nature. Although there had been plenty of King adaptations by this point, he was reluctant to give out the rights for Misery since it was so personal for him. The only filmmaker he would trust was Rob Reiner, after he made Stand By Me, adapted from a King story called The Body. Reiner was a much beloved figure in Hollywood, a warm and kind man whom everyone respected. His dad Carl was a frickin' TV legend, which probably helped him get cast on All in the Family when he was fresh out of college. Still, he transitioned from a TV actor into a film director, which was unusual at the time. I think Ron Howard was the only other high-profile case before him. Reiner had an insanely strong run of films that I think is sometimes overlooked nowadays. I mean, he did This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, and When Harry Met Sally, all in just the 6 years before he made Misery. His good stuff so good, I'm willing to overlook The Bucket List. God, that movie was bad. Unfortunately, Reiner and his longtime wife, Michelle Singer, were tragically murdered in December last year. It was a shocking event that rattled a lot of people in the film industry, and I wanted to make sure to honor him in my own way by covering his only horror film, especially since Misery is a masterpiece. It's up there with Silence of the Lambs and The Shining as a horror movie so good, people sometimes say it isn't horror at all, but it absolutely is. We take the schlock with open arms, you gotta let us have the good shit too, especially when its scenes and characters have become such a part of pop culture. There was a stage adaptation starring Bruce Willis, TV reimaginings, and more parodies than I could ever list here, including Saturday Night Live, Family Guy, and a 2008 DirecTV commercial where Kathy Bates reprised her role.
Watching anything but DirecTV? Now that would be painful.
In short, this is a classic film made by lovely people, and it's about time we had it on the Kill Count. How much blood will... one second. Soren?
Oh, James, thank God. Thank you for coming. I'm unwell. I'm plagued.
Damn, man, I'm sorry. I guess we better get you to a doctor.
Okay.
And thankfully, it's gonna be easy. Thanks to today's sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find one you love. It allows you to choose from over 150,000 providers across all 50 states and across 200 plus specialties. They've got dermatology, dentistry, primary care, and allergy and immunology, all of which you can search by specialty or by your symptoms.
No, I can't go to a doctor. I can't move.
Oh, man. Well, it's a good thing ZocDoc allows you to select from in-person and video visits. And regardless of which type you choose, you can make sure you're choosing the best doctor for you thanks to thousands of verified patient reviews that give you a sense of their demeanor, shared interests, and general quality. And once you've chosen one, you can instantly book an appointment with their real-time availability, with many appointments available within 24 to 72 hours. Yeah, I'll get you started, man. What are your symptoms?
I have a paper cut.
You have a paper cut?
I'm broken.
Okay.
It was cardstock. Help me!
Get out of my house. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/deadmeat to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/deadmeat. This message is sponsored by ZocDoc. How much blood will get spilled in the Misery business? Let's find out and get to the kills. The movie begins with an ending, specifically the ending of Paul Sheldon's new book, Untitled, by Paul Sheldon. Paul's the writer of a popular series of romance novels starring Misery Chastain. Despite the series being a massive success, a flashback reveals that Paul has decided to kill off his heroine, much to the chagrin of his agent Marcia.
Misery Chastain put braces on your daughter's teeth and is putting her through college. And what thanks does she get? You go and kill her.
But Paul wants to move on to bigger and better things.
I never meant for it to become my life. And if I hadn't gotten rid of her now,
I'd have ended up writing him forever.
It's a sentiment that hits home for a lot of creatives. Should they keep doing what's comfortable and successful, or should they try to find fulfillment by challenging themselves with something new? Paul's trying something new with a non-misery novel that he just finished writing in the mountains of Colorado. He celebrates with a ritual of champagne and a single cigarette for his health. Then he digs out his car and drives into a title card. We get a great opening credits sequence to Shotgun by Junior Walker and the All-Stars. Too bad that rear-wheel drive Mustang is a real dumbass car of choice for this literal whiteout. Paul rolls that baby right into a snowy ditch. The accident's so bad, it gives him goofy face. He's a guaranteed goner until a crowbar cracks through the ice and he's dragged to salvation. Sure, that's what we'll call it for now. It's gonna be a different vation soon. Captivation. That's because he's been found by someone who knows who he is.
You're gonna be just fine. I'll take good care of you. I'm your #1 fan.
Annie Wilkes is a local nurse who was able to fix Paul's dislocated shoulder.
It was a little stubborn, but I finally popped it back in.
His legs on the other foot? Well, she did what she could, but they're like crazy broken. What the fuck, dude? Oh, that's some nasty swollen sausages. Annie says the blizzard knocked out phone lines and emergency services, so they're isolated in her snowy woods house. But she'll treat him until they can get to a hospital. I love how the score matches what Paul thinks of Annie. These early scenes have a hopefulness to the music, a feeling of gratitude. Yet there are early signs that she might be a little dangerous. In fact, it wasn't even a coincidence she found him. She admits to some light stalking, sitting outside his cabin and following him around.
I wonder why a literary genius would go for a drive when there was a big storm coming.
I didn't know there was a big storm coming.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
Still, she fixed him up and has nothing but praise for Paul's work. That's good enough for him. Like all writers, Paul loves getting his ego stroked. Writer Tim wrote that line. It's true. You're a very good writer, Tim. Thank you. But Annie is specifically obsessed with misery. She's read all 8 books and has made it her whole personality. She's probably queen of Ms. Talk, not to be confused with Ms. Talk, which is awesome. The misery books are important to her. They were a distraction when her husband left her.
She made me so happy. She made me forget all my problems.
She even has a pet pig named after Misery.
So I told you I was your #1 fan.
Yeah, I'm starting to believe you.
Paul agrees to let his #1 fan take a peek at his latest manuscript, but after reading it, she says she doesn't like his new bad boy style.
The swearing, Paul. It has no nobility.
Paul based the crude dialogue off kids he knew growing up, but Annie's so offended she's spilling soup all over the place. She says real people don't talk like that. It would be ridiculous if they did.
Oh, now, Wally, give me a bag of that effing pig feed and 10 pounds that bitchly cow corn.
Her reaction is the first real hint that she might be a problem for Paul.
I love you, Paul.
And that's the second. Paul's disappearance has gotten Marsha worried. She's played by Lauren Bacall, a Golden Age star who was in films like The Big Sleep and To Have and Have Not.
I mean, I got a call from her agent saying, would you consider Lauren Bacall for this part? He said, you kidding me? Consider her. I mean, God, she's a legend,
Marsha calls up Silver Creek's sheriff, police chief, and fishing guide Buster. I fucking love Buster. He's a laid-back, casual, small-town guy, but also sympathetic and rational. At first, he doesn't think there's any cause for alarm, but he wants to make sure to get the straight story. He goes out looking for Paul with his wife/deputy Virginia, who's very amorous, even when Buster ain't looking to bust.
When you're in this car, you're not my wife, you're my deputy.
I love these two and the way they playfully tease each other.
We got a phone call. Busy morning.
Yeah, work.
These characters aren't in Stephen King's novel. They were written for the movie by screenwriter William Goldman. Their casting is perfect. Buster's played by Richard Farnsworth with so much warmth and intellect. Frances Sternhagen said it was easy to act flirtatious with him because he was so likable in person. She had just been in Reiner's sibling rivalry, and nearly 2 decades later, she'd kick ass in another King adaptation in The Mist. Buster's so dedicated to his job, the old man climbs his old ass down a snowbank looking for a clue. Why does his face here look exactly like Molly's when we're playing fetch? He doesn't end up finding anything.
Need some help? No, I'm enjoying myself. Thank you.
In fact, he just misses Paul's car tires sticking out of the snow. On his way out, we see that he's painfully close to Paul's captor in a great shot that swings from him on the side of the road to a head-on driving shot of Annie. Damn, that was good. Misery was shot by Barry Sonnenfeld, who had also been Reiner's cinematographer for When Harry Met Sally. This was actually the last movie he would DP for someone else before directing his own films, like the Addams Family movies, the Men in Black trilogy, and Wild Wild West. It was his idea to use wide-angle close-ups on Annie to let the audience get up close and terrified. Annie comes back from the store but tells Paul the road to the hospital is still blocked. To pass the time, she's picked up the latest Misery book, which just came out. A few chapters in, she says it's divine. It makes her so happy she could snort. And she does. These times when Annie's personality reverts to a schoolgirl with a crush makes her extra terrifying. It's like there's no in-between with her. She's either super PO'd or saccharine sweet and as folksy as Paul Bunyan.
Forgive me for prattling away and making you feel all oogie.
Unfortunately for Annie, and for Paul, this latest Misery novel doesn't have a happy ending. When she finishes the book, she walks in looking like a Star Wars fan meeting Rian Johnson. She's pissed that Paul killed off her favorite character. You murdered her! By God, that table had a family! Wait, how didn't he get hit in the face with any of that? Annie turns on Paul and drops any pretense of taking him to the hospital.
And don't even think about anybody coming for you, because I never called them. Nobody knows you're here.
There ain't much he can do about it either.
Because if I die, you die.
She leaves and Paul decides to make a move, literally by moving his body onto the floor, violently. But Annie's right about his helplessness. He can barely crawl around, and besides, the door is locked. He's a prisoner here. Unsurprisingly, Misery was inspired by King's own experiences as an author. He wrote the book after the failure of his 1984 fantasy novel, The Eyes of the Dragon. It was well received by critics, but rejected by his fans due to its departure from the horror genre.
When the world expects a certain thing from you and you want to go in another direction.
Reiner identified with this part of the story too. Having just finished the highly successful When Harry Met Sally, colleagues and viewers alike urged him to keep making more of the same thing. Instead, he wanted to challenge himself by making a thriller, giving us Misery. Reiner wound up naming his production company after Castle Rock, the fictional town featured in many King stories. The company would end up making 7 King adaptations, though most of them were dramatic stories like The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption instead of straight horror. Annie returns the next morning, much calmer after chatting with the man upstairs.
I asked God about you, and God said, I delivered him unto you so that you may show him the way.
In this case, the way means burning his manuscript. Oh, well, if God says to do it, it's a painful decision, since this is 1990 and Paul don't have a backup on his Google Drive. But Annie makes him choose between his book and his body, so Paul begrudgingly complies. Oh man, this is worse than when I've done a whole kill count only to find out the sound wasn't recording. With his situation good and fucked, Paul decides to make a long-term plan. He starts foregoing his painkillers and stashing them away in his mattress. As the days go by, Annie eventually gives Paul a wheelchair so he can get the full Jimmy Stewart experience. But with no neighbors to peep on, he'll have to pass the time a different way, writing a new entry in the Misery series. He can use this flimsy folding table and 50-pound typewriter with a broken end key. Paul sees a bobby pin on the floor and tries to distract Annie by requesting new paper, saying this kind smudges. See? Smudge. But that simple request breaks Annie's frickin' brain.
I do everything to try and make you happy. I feed you, I clean you, I dress you, and what thanks do I get? Oh, you bought the wrong paper, Annie. I can't write on this paper, Annie.
She reams him out and hits him with a ream, but whatever. Worth it to get that lady out of the house for a minute. Now to get that bobby pin. And since it's not bolted down, he knows he's supposed to use it to escape the room. Paul manages to pick the lock, only to find the front door fastened shut and the phone a hollowed out prop. You could put your weed in there. He sees a shrine to his work with an autographed photo indicating their paths have crossed before. Well, that or Annie got it on eBay. He's mostly careful, except for when he almost breaks a ceramic penguin. He saves it, but places it back on the table facing the other way, idiot! While Annie finishes up her shopping and starts heading home, Paul finds her stash of drugs and hides some in his crotch. Crotch drugs. He sees a back exit in the kitchen, but a narrow doorway forces him to hoof it by elbow. Alas, his 100-meter crawl is all in vain, since this door too is locked. He considers nabbing a knife when he hears Annie returning from the store. We get a great suspense scene as he races back to his room, with fun direction and more of Mark Shaman's super effective score. Shaman scored 15 Reiner movies and is currently just 1 Oscar short of an EGOT. What's gotta sting is that he's been nominated for an Oscar 7 times. Wait, including for, holy shit, Blame Canada? Wait, this dude co-wrote all the songs for Bigger, Longer, and Uncut with Trey Parker? Those songs are masterpieces, dude. That's such a good musical. Fuck yeah, Mark Shaman. Paul gets back just in time and explains his perspiration as a product of pain. That's good enough for Annie. After all, 2 people in love can never stay mad at each other. Buster's been searching the area in a helicopter, piloted by Reiner in a silent cameo. They eventually manage to find Paul's car, but the police declare him deceased and, probably eaten by animals? I don't know, he's gone. Not Buster, though. He ain't buying that shit.
You see the dents on the door there? Someone pulled him out.
That's some fine police work, Buster. I'm not sure why he doesn't tell the other officers, or if they already know and just don't care. Either way, Buster scrubs this one up for himself. Well, you know, him and his wife. Paul starts setting his escape plan in motion. The first step is to empty all his drugs into a paper pouch. Then he's got to play the part for a while, which means writing a new novel. His first effort's a little lowbrow. Oh dog, you better eat that page, lest Annie find it and punish you for being a dirty bird. He tries to write some bullshit, but it gets rejected by Annie, who won't accept shortcuts that retcon the ending of the last book. That always peeved her off as a kid watching serials.
I stood right up and started shouting, "This isn't what happened last week! Have you all got amnesia? They just cheated us! This isn't fair!"
Oh my god, this shot gets so close, her eyes start looking like Molly's. Why are you all over this movie? She demands that Paul start from where the last book left off, Misery buried underground in a grave. His second attempt is much better received, with a solution that gets Annie twirling around like a little kid.
Oh, this whole house is gonna be filled with romance. I'm gonna put on my Liberace records.
Kathy Bates was not an inexperienced actor. In fact, she had already been nominated for a Tony in 1983. But she struggled to find screen roles, with multiple casting agents saying she wasn't attractive enough to be successful. Screenwriter Goldman wrote the part of Annie specifically with her in mind, and Reiner trusted his instincts, since Goldman had been the one to suggest Andre the Giant for The Princess Bride. Having earned some goodwill with his captor, Paul suggests a celebratory dinner. Annie makes meatloaf and mash.
My secret is I only use fresh tomatoes, never canned. And to give it that little extra zip, I mix in some Spam with the ground beef.
Yo, Babish, where you at with this one? Collab vid? Paul proposes a toast, and while Annie's distracted, he spikes her glass with his painkiller powder. But before she can drink it, Wilkesy has a whoopsie and knocks her glass over. It is a devastating fumble. All that time emptying those pills, only for his plan to fail in a flash.
To misery.
Misery.
Yeah, he fucking means that too. I love the pained performance we get from James Caan, who was far from Reiner's first choice for the role. He had been a big deal in the 70s, after breaking through as Sonny Corleone in The Godfather. A bunch of big roles and award nominations followed, but he took a 5-year break in the 80s after what he called Hollywood burnout. Misery was part of his return to prominence, even though the role was somewhat ironic for him. He was a very physical and hyperactive guy, but spends almost all of his screen time lying in a bed. The frustration works to his advantage, and gives Bates a wonderful scene partner. And oh yeah, we've seen him on the kill count before. The opening scene of Santa's sleigh. With his escape plan foiled, Paul spends the next few weeks trapped and writing his little ass off, through all sorts of weather, like he's on a boat for the New World with Ann Lee. But all is not concert here, since Annie starts looking pretty down in the dumps. She admits that she's fallen in love with Paul, but that she knows he doesn't love her. And after he finishes the book, he won't have any reason to stay. Oh, also, she has this gun. But that's not like relevant or anything. She's just saying she has a gun.
I better go now. I might put bullets in it.
Okay, well, that's not exactly the kind of thing you want to hear. I think Annie's on tilt, like literally. Look at that Dutch tilt.
We gotta have a Dutch tilt somewhere in this movie.
This was Reiner's first horror/thriller, so he studied the genre, watching lots of Hitchcock and film noirs like The Third Man. He replicated the visual language of those movies, not just Dutch angles, but lots of inserts and close-ups that could be used to stretch or shorten time and build suspense.
Put the audience in the best seat. Give them the best seat in the house. So wherever I wanted to be at a particular moment, that's where I put the camera.
This is most noticeable in that montage from earlier, where Paul is trying to get back to his room before Annie comes home. They spent a lot of time cutting and recutting the shots to find the perfect balance and pace. Realizing he can't write his way to freedom, Paul decides to take advantage of Annie's absence and go grab that knife from earlier. On the way back to his room, he finds Annie's scrapbook, with such memories as probably killed my dad, and also probably killed my classmate. Oh, and of course, probably killed a bunch of infants? What the fuck? I feel like a lot of people don't remember that Annie Wilkes is a baby killer, because that shit's wild. No wonder Paul takes the knife with him to bed and practices his shanking swipes. Ha! Ha! Annie returns home late, but doesn't bother checking in on Paul, leaving her unshanked for now. He nods off to sleep, which is a huge mistake, since it gives her the opening to jump scare him with some night-night juice. When he wakes up, he finds that Annie's tucked him in a little tighter than usual. She's figured out he's been getting out of his room, thanks to that pesky penguin. Liberace's version of Moonlight Sonata scores the movie's most infamous scene. Annie decides to punish Paul with a method diamond mine owners used on workers who stole from them.
If they caught them, they had to make sure they could go on working, but they also had to make sure they could never run away. The operation was called hobbling.
She preps Paul's feet and readies up a sledgehammer before letting her rip.
It's for the best.
Annie, please! Oh my God! Oh, what a horrific thing done by a horrific person.
God, I love you.
Well, can you not, please? The effects in Misery were done by K&B, who's shown up on the kill count more times than I can count. And I'm a professional counter. They were still a pretty new effects company at the time, but since Greg Nicotero had been a pre-med student, he was known for being able to make realistic body parts. For instance, these sausage legs we see after the accident. They were basically foam latex booties Khan wore over his real legs. They're so gross and good. The hobbling scene used gelatin prosthetics made from a cast of Khan's legs. It took them weeks to punch in all the individual hairs, and it used a hinge mechanic so they could trigger the ankle to break on cue. They actually made 2 fake legs and filmed both ankles being broken, but the second hobbling was cut from the final film. They figured it was effective enough without seeing it a second time, and they're right. Khan's screaming sells it enough on its own. In the novel, this scene's a bit different. Instead of breaking Paul's ankles, she cuts off one of his feet with an axe. Writer Goldman originally wrote that into the script, but Reiner insisted they tone it down. K&B didn't mind.
Whether you cut a foot off with an axe or whether you break it, there's still some technical expertise that we have to figure out how to do it.
Reiner was worried the audience would lose interest in Annie after such an evil act. He also thought it was important for Paul's arc.
I didn't want to have him not have feet at the end.
I wanted him.
So he could walk around.
I remember you said you shouldn't have to lose something after you've learned something.
That's right.
Paul's in dire need of rescuing, but Buster's been short on leads. He's resorted to reading through Paul's catalog for clues.
What do you expect to find? A story about a guy who drove his car off a cliff in a snowstorm?
You see, it's just that kind of sarcasm that's given our marriage real spice.
He reads like he's cramming for a book report, even writing down his favorite passages.
There is a justice higher than that of man. I will be judged by him.
After witnessing Annie in a road rage incident, he looks her up at the library. He sees that very same quote he wrote down, said by her when she was arrested. Wait, I'm sorry, does the town just know that Annie committed infanticide? She shops at the store. Do they just see her and are like, nope, there goes old baby killer Annie. Make sure to keep your kids close when that one's around. The shop owner mentions that BKA bought typewriter paper recently, which Buster finds curious. Curious enough for a house call. Right as Paul sees him coming, he gets attacked by Annie and a needle full of drugs. Down into the psycho cellar he goes! Oh, okay, I thought she was just gonna dump him down there. Annie meets Buster at the door and admits she's been following the Paul Sheldon case closely.
I'm his #1 fan.
She explains away the writing room as her attempt to recreate Paul's writing, and although Buster senses that something is amiss, he doesn't find any evidence. It's not until he's on his way out that Paul wakes up and makes a ruckus. Buster doubles back and manages to find him.
Mr. Sheldon?
Oh, right before Annie blows a hole through his back. Oh no, not Buster. Oh, that sucks. His poor wife's gonna be so sad. Killing one cop is sure to bring others around, so Annie decides it's time to use the 2 bullets in her gun on her and Paul. He convinces her to delay their afterlife elopement by a couple of hours so he can finish the book.
We have the power to give Misery eternal life.
Annie agrees to his terms and preps his room, giving Paul the chance to stick some lighter fluid up his butt. Kinky. As night falls, Paul finishes up the final chapter of Misery's return. To properly celebrate, he asks Annie to procure his ritualistic cigarette, match, and champagne. And since she's the one who made this all possible, he invites her to drink with him to their success. When she leaves for the second glass, he sets up a bedroom book bonfire instead.
Remember how for all those years nobody knew who Misery's real father was? Or if they'd ever be reunited? It's all right here.
And with that, he sets his work ablaze. While Annie's distracted, Paul bashes her over the head with a 50-pound typewriter. She strangles him a bit, and he thumbs her in the eyes, and she manages to shoot him in the shoulder. A follow-up spear makes her gun go off a second time, expelling the only other bullet. He starts Molly Brown whopping her, then forces her to eat her words, or his words. Extra well done. Finally, he trips her. Oh my God! Oh, that was so painful, and also clearly a fake head, but it's fine. K&B made 3 gelatin heads for different shots, and I think the one they used here was a last-minute request. Might explain the quality. But I bet you didn't realize it was also a fake head when Paul's shoving burnt paper down Annie's throat. Also, I love the story of Kathy Bates meeting the K&B guys to get her head cast. She came into their studio hot.
Professional, and I guess nice to meet you. And she was like, lick my plate, you dog dick. And we were like, wait, what? And she started quoting Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Man, Kathy Bates sounds awesome. She and James Caan didn't use stunt doubles for the fight scene. They performed the whole thing themselves. Bates said she felt safe with him because he was so strong and athletic. The only thing that sucked was getting her head banged against the floor. They had a pad, but I mean, that's gonna be rough no matter what. With his captor seemingly dead, Paul tries to crawl away to freedom, only for Annie to return for one last scare. He's able to grab a nearby doorstop in the shape of her pet pig and uses it for a final porcine punch to the face that puts Annie down for good. 18 months later, Paul has mostly recovered from his experience. He's written a brand new book and is finally getting the critical acclaim he's always wanted. The only problem is he's still haunted by his misery muse. The movie ends with a waitress who really can't read the room.
I just want to tell you I'm your #1 fan.
Oh yeah? Well, a real #1 fan wouldn't remind him of that time he got hobbled. How many guests got hobbled during their stay at the Kathy Bates Motel? Let's find out and get to the...
God, I love to the numbers bits.
Only 2 people died in Misery, which isn't surprising. There were only like 5 characters total. The victims consisted of 1 man and 1 woman, giving us this equally divided, humble, hobble pie chart. It's a count and breakdown we've seen 5 times before on this show. With a runtime of 107 minutes, Misery had a kill on average every 53.5 minutes. I'll give the Golden Chainsaw for coolest kill to Annie. The whole film builds up to this confrontation, and it's a brutal, bloody, and fitting end to one hell of a villain. And I won't give a dull machete for this one, since I like the suddenness of Buster's buckshotting. Very Dick Halloran of him. And that's it. Misery came out in 1990 to critical acclaim and launched a successful screen career for Kathy Bates, cause fuck the haters. Until next time, I'm James A. Janice. This has been The Kill Count.
On the next Kill Count.
Dr. Henry Frankenstein shocked the world by uncovering the secrets of life and death. His creation brought thrills, chills, and kills to the silver screen until his reign of terror was cut short by an angry mob.
He must be dead.
Or was it?
That wasn't the end at all.
Yes, Frankenstein's monster has returned, thirsty for one thing, and it isn't a hard drink.
Drink. Good.
Though he wouldn't turn one down. What he's really thirsting after is a mate.
Woman.
The monster wants his creator to build him a bride. Witness the horror. The excitement.
Good.
And the heartache.
How beautifully dramatic.
As Dr. Frankenstein violates the laws of nature for monstrous love. What will happen when the monster meets his mate?
Oh, what a terrible wedding night.
And who's this guy? And why does he have little people in jars? What's going on here? This week, say I do to the Bride of Frankenstein.
She's alive. Alive!
Then on Friday, save the date for the Kill Count. Only on Dead Meat.
It's a perfect night for mystery and horror.
Bride of Frankenstein. It can currently be watched on the pictured streaming platforms. Dead Meat always recommends you watch the movie for yourself before its kill count. It's the only way to have your own properly informed opinion. Kill counts are never meant to replace the experience of watching a film.
Thanks a lot for watching this Kill Count for Misery. This movie's a classic, so much so that I saw a lot of people thinking we already covered it on the Kill Count. But we didn't until now. No reason, just a lot of horror movies out there, you know? But obviously with Rob Reiner's very sad death, I figured now was the time to do it and shine some light on his career. People who love movies probably already know all about Rob Reiner, but if you're just like a horror person, like you only watch horror movies, or maybe you don't watch older movies from the 80s and 90s, he's a very good filmmaker, and that run of movies definitely deserves a watch. When Harry Met Sally is like the best rom-com ever. I don't think that's controversial to say. Anyway, RIP to him and Michelle. I want to thank some patrons like Monique and Christopher Garcia Diaz and Samuel/Sam Garvin. Thanks for your patience, all of you. As well as Torfin, Pokalek, Dexter Nardi, Roman, Gaming Cheetah 1, and AJ. Thanks everyone. Be good meatheads.